This is a SnapEd New York video presentation.
Hello everyone, my name is Wendy Beckman and I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging and SnapEd New York. Thanks for joining me today on What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Today I'm going to be making fried rice with chicken. We'll be posting the link to the recipe below, and the recipe can also be found on the SnapEd New York website at www.snapedny.org. This recipe is inspired by traditional Chinese fried rice. This dish is similar to takeout fried rice. It tastes just as delicious, and it's loaded with vegetables and protein. This recipe makes 6 servings with 216 calories, 29 grams of carbohydrates, 2 grams of fiber, and 14 grams of protein. Before we get into this recipe, let's look at the MyPlate graphic. This recipe covers the fruits and vegetables section, the grain section, and the protein section of MyPlate. So this meal is complete and it's made in just this one pan. This recipe includes brown rice, which is a grain, lots of veggies covering the fruits and vegetables section, and chicken, which covers the protein section of MyPlate. Add some fruit for dessert and you have a complete meal. You want to make half of your plate fruits and vegetables at each meal, and this recipe can help you reach that goal. This recipe also includes brown rice, which is a whole grain. Make half your grains whole grains by including things like whole wheat pasta, whole wheat bread, and whole grains like brown rice and quinoa. Whole grain foods contain more fiber and vitamins and minerals than their white grain counterparts. You want to vary your protein routine by including lean forms of animal protein in your diet, like the chicken in this recipe. Proteins also help our bodies to repair damaged cells, so you want to include enough on your plate at each meal. Remember that everything you eat and drink over time matters. You want to find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. The right mix can help you be healthier now and in the future. So let's start making fried rice with chicken. Remember to wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer before you start cooking. So let's look at the ingredients for this recipe. The recipe calls for 1 cup of cooked brown rice, and I have made this rice ahead of time, but you don't have to do that. I used converted brown rice, which cooks quicker than non-converted rice. The recipe tells you how to cook non-converted rice if you want to look that up. The recipe calls for 2 cups of water, and I don't have that here because my rice is already cooked. If you're going to cook the rice at the same time as the rest of the recipe, you're going to need the 2 cups of water to cook the rice in. Here I have 2 tablespoons right here, plus 1 teaspoon of, well, the recipe calls for olive oil, but I'm actually going to be using vegetable oil. Vegetable oil or canola oil, something like that, has a better tolerance of high heat than olive oil does. I find if you use olive oil in a really hot pan like this, it can start smoking before your meal is done, so you don't want that. So I suggest using vegetable or canola oil instead of olive oil for this recipe. You also need 2 chicken breasts that are cubed into 1-inch pieces. I did cook this ahead of time, and I only used 1 chicken breast. And the reason for that was because the chicken breast was pretty large. Now, you can cook your chicken at the same time you cook the rest of this meal, but in the interest of time, I made mine ahead of time. I also think this recipe would be a really great way to use up leftover chicken that you had. So if you had some chicken left over from the night before, whether it was roasted chicken or barbecue chicken, anything like that, you would cut it up and use it in this recipe. I have 1 bell pepper that is chopped. I've got 1 carrot here, and I'm going to julienne that for you. In just a minute, I'm going to show you how to do that. I have a bunch of scallions chopped. I use about 3 or 4 scallions. Here's 2 cloves of garlic, minced. You can use a jar of garlic if you want to, or you can even just use dried garlic. That's fine too. I have a 1/4 cup of soy sauce. Now, I've used the low sodium version of soy sauce. I find the regular soy sauce is really just too salty for me, and I use the low sodium for actually everything that I make now. I also have 2 cups of fresh spinach, but you could use any other kind of greens that you wanted. You could use kale or something like that. You could even use frozen spinach if you wanted to. If you use frozen spinach, you probably only need 1 cup of the frozen instead of 2 cups of the fresh, and just keep in mind that you're going to want to thaw it out first, and then you're going to want to squeeze out as much of the moisture in the frozen spinach that you can. You don't want to put a lot of moisture in a hot pan with oil, it'll splatter too much. I have 1 egg here that I've whisked together, and I have salt and pepper to taste. That's optional. You can add that if you want to, but you don't have to. So the first thing you're going to do is cook your rice. Like I said, I've already done that, but that's what's in the recipe. It tells you to cook the rice first. And if you use non-converted rice, that is going to take longer. It takes about 40 to 50 minutes to cook. That's also something that you could make ahead of time, like doing some batch cooking, either on the weekend or on weeknight when you have some extra time. That'd save you some time when making this recipe as well. So first we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of the oil to the pan, and this is on pretty high heat. Medium to high, I would say, is good. So let's put that in there. And the pan's been heating up for a few minutes, so it's already up to temperature. Next, I'm going to add this chicken to the hot pan. Now, if this was raw chicken, right, you'd have to cook it first. But since it's already cooked, we just have to sort of heat it through. This chicken's been in the refrigerator overnight, so we got to warm it back up. That will work in the oil there. If you're going to use raw chicken, you have to cook it until it's brown, and then there's no pink left in the center, and the juices are running clear. If you want to check for sure if the chicken is cooked, you can use a thermometer. You're going to cook the chicken to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And while that chicken is browning, you can add the salt and pepper if you want to. I haven't done that yet, so I'm going to do that now. And add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Get rid of that now. All right. Let's stir that around a little bit, just to make sure that the salt and pepper are sort of integrated in with the rest of the chicken. All right, that looks good. So after you have the chicken in here, you're going to add the vegetables. First, we're going to add this red pepper. Let's put that in. And mix that around. Going to want to get these vegetables a little bit more soft. And next, we're going to add the carrots. So I'm going to cut this carrot up. I'm going to julienne it. I'm going to tell you what that means. So let's move some of these things over here. You have a round carrot, and to julienne something means to basically cut it into sort of matchstick pieces. So you want to take a round carrot and you want to make it into a rectangle. So I'm going to cut this carrot in half. And I'm going to cut the sides off just a little bit on each side to sort of flatten out the edges of it. Now flip it over on that side, the flat side, to make it a little easier to cut. Let's flip it over again. There, and we're going to try and sort of make it into a rectangle. I'm going to save these pieces here. But now that it's somewhat rectangular in shape, I'm going to cut some pieces off of this that are about 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch. Just going to cut it into sort of long pieces here. Whoops. You can flip it around to try and get it nice and stable. All right, so now that we have them cut into these long pieces, you're going to want to cut them in long pieces again. So each piece you can just sort of cut into 2 or 3 pieces so that, again, looks sort of like a long rectangle, right? And then you can add those into your pan. And the reason why we cut things into this shape, and we're cutting these carrots into this shape, is that they'll stay a little crispier. They look a little fancier if you do it that way. Certainly, if you cut them thinner, they're going to cook a little bit more. But if you keep them a little thicker, they're going to stay a little more crispy. So it's up to you, depending on how you like things. If you don't mind your carrots to be a little softer, then you can cut them into other shapes or cut them thinner. But if you like them to be a little more crispy, you can cut them into sort of these little rectangles like this. All right. And these pieces, I'm going to throw those in there too. I don't want to waste them. And then we could do the same thing with this other piece. Just cut them into long pieces like this, and then cut them sort of into these little matchsticks. All right? And you can make them as long or as short as you want to. It's up to you. So that actually is something, it's better to use a larger knife to do that, but I can tell you that it's actually a little bit challenging to do. So it certainly makes the carrots look pretty, but if cutting is difficult for you, you have a hard time using a knife, or you have a hard time, putting the pressure on your hands to cut down on a carrot like that, you can use frozen carrots. You can cut the carrots, if you have fresh ones, into little rounds. They don't have to be julienne like that. You alternatively could use the carrots in the grocery store that are shredded. Now, if you do that, they're probably going to come out a little bit softer. They won't be as crunchy as maybe if you cut them like this. But if cutting those carrots is going to be really hard for you, then use that convenience food. It's really okay to use convenience foods to either save time or make it easier for you to get those veggies in the pan. A vegetable that you eat is better than a vegetable that you don't eat or that you can't eat because you can't cut it up. So that's important. So next we're going to add the scallions. Let's put those in. And we're going to stir those up. All right, we're starting to get these vegetables are looking a little softer. That's great. That's what we want. And it looks very nice and colorful. So we have the orange carrots and the red peppers and the green scallions. It looks beautiful. That's wonderful. And we're going to also add the garlic to this. So let's take these 2 cloves of minced garlic. Again, you can add more or less. If you don't really like garlic, you can add less. If you want to use garlic powder, you absolutely can do that instead of fresh garlic, whatever you want to do. And sometimes it comes down to what do you have in your pantry, right? Sometimes I run out of fresh garlic and then I'll just use garlic powder. That's okay. Now the vegetables need to cook until they're tender, but you don't want to overcook them. You don't want them to be too mushy. All right. So I think you could add just about any other vegetable to this recipe that you wanted. If you wanted to add more color, you could add some broccoli or some green peppers also. Feel free to add any kind of vegetable that you want. Again, it's a really great way to use up leftover vegetables. And I know that it's not really a traditional way to make fried rice, but in this recipe, we're trying to add some protein and some more vegetables to it. So that's why we're doing that. And it's okay. So remember that you can use fresh, frozen, canned, or dried vegetables. All forms count. If you wanted to use frozen carrots, go ahead and do that. Just make sure anything you're going to put into this pan, you're going to thaw ahead of time. Make sure you drain it well. Now, once the vegetables are cooked, you can add the cooked rice to the pan. So let's do that. If you had made the rice prior to making this whole recipe here, you might have another pan that you made your rice in, but that's okay. There we go. Now that's really starting to come together. Now I have used brown rice because I want to add a little extra fiber to my fried rice, but you don't have to do that. We want to make half of our grains whole grains. So if you wanted to use white rice, you absolutely could do that if you're going to include other whole grains in your diet. So you're going to be eating some wheat bread, or you're going to be eating some wheat pasta, and then you want to use white rice in this recipe, you can absolutely do that. So once we have the rice in here, we're going to add the soy sauce. That's next. Let's do that. And then we're going to add the spinach last, okay? And we're going to make sure that this comes together. We're going to stir this up just until the spinach is wilted. So that's going to take just a little bit of time. But you can see that as it gets warm and it cooks, it'll start to lose some of the volume because some of the water is going to come out of the spinach here. And again, if you wanted to use a frozen spinach, you're going to use less because frozen spinach already has been cooked once and you're going to thaw it out. You probably don't need to use quite as much. If you wanted to use something like kale, you absolutely could do that. That might take a little bit longer to cook because kale is pretty hearty. It's a little fibrous, probably more fibrous than the spinach is. And certainly spinach is not something that you would traditionally put probably in a Chinese fried rice, but it's a good way to add some more leafy green vegetables to your diet. So that's what we're doing here. Now it's starting to wilt. Now you can really see how that spinach is starting to cook down a little bit. That looks great. Okay. Now the last thing we're going to do is add the egg. You have to make a space in the middle of the rice mixture in the pan here to put the egg in. So let me see if I can make a little space in the middle of this pan. There we go. That looks pretty good. And we're going to put some of the vegetable oil in the middle here. This is, half to 1 teaspoon of vegetable oil in the pan. Spread that around a little bit. All right. And last, we're going to put this egg in here. Because we're going to cook that egg. We're going to sort of scramble that egg right in the middle of the pan here. So let's mix that together. So this egg is going to add a little bit more protein to this dish, just like the chicken does. I think that you could make this dish vegetarian by omitting the chicken and then adding a different protein source, a vegetable protein source, such as soy. So you could put some tofu in here, or you could put some edamame in here, and that would make it vegetarian. It wouldn't be vegan because of the egg, but it would be vegetarian if you take that chicken out of there. So I'm going to cook that just a little bit more. You want it to be nice and firm. Make sure that it's fully cooked. You can have some problems. You want to make sure that you don't have any salmonella living in here. Heat will kill salmonella, which can be found in eggs. So we're going to cook that thoroughly. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So once the egg is cooked, you can combine it with the rest of the rice mixture, which has already started to happen already a little bit here, but now we're really going to combine everything together. There we go. Mix that together. I can really smell the garlic and the scallions going here. Wow, that looks really nice. Lots of colorful vegetables, lots of protein. We've got some whole grains in there for a little extra added fiber. But like I said, you want to use white rice, that's absolutely okay too. All right, that's looking pretty good. And that's it. That is the fried rice with chicken. So here you can see that it's really nice and colorful. It has a lot of extra vegetables in it. And you can see the green, the orange, the red. Looks great. Now I made this complete meal in just this one pan. And so if you cook the rice in a different pan, then you would have two pans, but I did it all in one here. Now I hope that this recipe gave you more ideas on how to incorporate more vegetables and whole grains and protein into your diet. Don't forget to join me next month when I share more tips on how to save time, save money, and eat healthy. In May, I'll be making a mushroom bulgur pilaf. It's a great side dish to complement any meal. I'll be back with another edition of What's Cooking with NYSOFA on Friday, May 31st at 12:30 p.m. right here on the New York State Office for the Aging Facebook page and the New York State Office for the Aging YouTube channel. This presentation was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe out there.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP-Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP-Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material is funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.
Hi, I'm registered dietitian Wendy Beckman, host of What's Cooking with NYSOFA. Over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to share healthy, nutritious recipes with you on the show. I work for the New York State Office for the Aging, and thanks to a partnership with SNAP-Ed New York, our nutrition team reaches hundreds of thousands of older New Yorkers each year. So why a cooking program? 60% of health costs and related issues have nothing to do with health, but instead have to do with individual behaviors like our food choices and physical activity. The recipes we feature are nutritionally appropriate for older adults, meeting critical nutrition requirements for healthy aging. What I bet you don't know is that this show is only part of a larger effort. To help me explain what our nutrition team at the New York State Office for the Aging does and what a registered dietitian is, here is registered dietitian Lisbeth Irish.
A registered dietitian is a professional who has training and education in food and nutrition. To become an RD, you must complete certain requirements, including a minimum of a bachelor's degree from an institution that's accredited by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. You must also pass a national examination and meet continuing education requirements. What does that mean? As RDs, we are qualified to offer accurate advice about nutrition, and we can help answer your questions about how diet can affect your health. At NYSOFA, the registered dietitians handle many tasks. This includes hosting 2 online programs aimed at helping older New Yorkers make better nutrition choices. These programs are What's Cooking with NYSOFA, which is our monthly cooking demonstration, and a Facebook Live program that I host called Ask the Experts, Nutrition Edition. In the months ahead, be on your lookout for it. We'll be sharing your questions and our experts' answers about nutrition and health. New episodes of Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition debut the second Friday of each month on Facebook and YouTube.
As Lisbeth explained, registered dietitians at NYSOFA handle many tasks, including food safety at congregate meal sites, educational materials, and outreach. In the meantime, please don't miss an episode of either show produced by our team, What's Cooking with NYSOFA and Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition. Every episode is uploaded to YouTube, and you'll find the archive shows there.
Do you have a question about foods? Or do you have a particular health issue that you'd like to improve by changing your diet? Tune in to Ask the Experts Nutrition Edition every second Friday at 1 p.m. We'd love to hear from you.
Remember, registered dietitians are the experts in nutrition. Visit for more sound advice about eating healthy on a budget.